Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show, the place where you matter. Being yourself, being authentic, that's what really stokes the fires here. As we begin today, I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. As we gather on many places on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here. And we thank all the generations of Indigenous people, Métis Inuit, who have created this sacred land in such a beautiful way and taken such great care of it. I'm also grateful to the African communities that have come here and have built this country, these countries, in a way that we're in the process of dismantling and shifting and changing. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be an ally, to be supportive of the Indigenous African people of the world, and to create a world that actually works in honor and respect of all beings everywhere at all times. So I'm grateful, grateful, grateful. I know that we are one, and it is in that oneness that we begin today. So my guest today, wow, we are in for a treat. Former First Lady of Oregon, Cylvia Hayes. Cylvia is a writer, a speaker, a teacher, a unity spiritual leader and minister, and her mission is to really heal separation consciousness and create a more beautiful world for all beings to thrive. I love that. We're on the same page. Welcome, Cylvia.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Now, tell me a little bit about your path, because you're former First Lady of Oregon and now you're this unity minister. How did that all happen?
Oh my gosh. If I could say anything about my path, it's that it has been unconventional. I mean, I don't know how much you want to know. You can cut me off at any time, but I was raised a rough little farm kid in the foothills of Washington State. And in fact, I'm the first in my ancestry born outside of Oklahoma and Arkansas because my mom left her first husband for his younger brother. And so they had to get the hell out of Dodge, literally. So I was born in the Northwest. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And just, to nutshell, I guess some of the high points, wound up on my own at 16, had some real challenges with parents who were ill and dealing with things, and went off track for a little while, I would say. Then I decided, I want something different. And I would say my real intentional spiritual path began to really happen in my early 20s. I was also raised, this will probably come up, I was raised in a very heavy-handed hellfire brimstone version of Christianity that I rejected. And that was going on while the really difficult things in my family were going on. But in my late teens, early 20s, did some 12-step work, and really started seeking in earnest. And through a very eclectic path we could talk about later. And then I went on to become a first generation college grad, put myself through school playing soccer. Nice. I've worked as everything from an apple tree picker to a plastic surgery assistant to a professional horse trainer. But I really, my passion, my life's work really revolves around doing what I can to help humanity come into a healthier relationship with the rest of nature, so that all of creation can thrive. And that bug bit me early on in junior college when I realized how we were hemorrhaging species because of human activities and the human economic system.
Well, we sure saw that at the beginning of COVID, didn't we? Lock everything down and watch wildlife and plant life flourish.
Yes. I don't know if you saw, I also did a sacred economics or spiritual economics talk, I think on Spirit Cafe, which you are also involved in. And I showed a clip of the film narrated by David Attenborough called The Year Earth Changed.
Yes.
And I'm on a bit of a mission to get people to watch that because it shows what can happen and how fast she can heal when we do transform that economic system.
Well, I think it's so important that we start to realize we're part of the system. We're not exempt from it. We're not the overlords of it. We actually are a part of this system. And as we act in this over consumerism and all the ways that we kill off things because they make us uncomfortable, we're actually destroying the very thing that sustains us. It'll
Yeah.
kick off before it will cease to exist.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I always like to say we are a part of, not a part from or above the rest of
Yes.
nature. And
Yes.
yeah, one of the challenges of the time that we're living in, there are a whole lot of us, maybe most of us, who understand that the way humans are interacting with this planet is not working, and
No.
it's damaging things that we deeply love, and yet we are all also caught in the very system that we're wanting to transform. So that's a dance, I think, that unity and new thought principles really can help us navigate how to sit in the paradox of wanting something different
Yeah.
while we ourselves are sometimes perpetuating what currently exists.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
that's
important to speak that and to not beat ourselves up, but just to continue to do better and better and better as we
yeah,
go.
asking the questions and then sitting in, like, what is mine to do right now?
Yeah,
And there's, if every person took one little step, that would have an impact.
for
And
sure.
it's like for, sometimes I'll hear people say, well, I'm only one person. What can I do? Well, you can do plenty, right? It's
Yeah,
like that shift in consciousness makes a change. And when one person shifts, because we're all connected energetically, the shift moves out. It touches everything when one person raises their consciousness. Consciousness is raised.
I think so, and I also and I think so,
Yeah.
not but and um
Yeah.
part of my ministry, I believe, is to be a little bit of a burr under the saddle pad in the
Good.
new thought movement, because
Good.
I do think that our inner work matters and shifting consciousness matters. And I
Mhm.
think it's also critically important that we take the meditation off the mat and into the messes, that we actually do take action, because we we have something of value to bring even to activism right now, because we can enter into activism in a way that's not a battlefield, in a way that is a little more elevated, which I
Yes.
believe is a powerful, powerful role for us at this time.
I think that is our role. I think that truly is our role, because the idea of fighting, that idea that we're at war with, or that we're fighting against, or we have to compete with or overcome, or all of that is a very negative, heavy energy that is not going to propel us. What has to happen is individual healing, an individual awakening, and do that on the collective, whereas each one of us finds our path, and then we share that light. We're
Mhm.
willing to show up vulnerable. We're willing to heal our sore spots, our pain. We can't mask it. A band-aid will not stop you from bleeding to death if your carotid is cut.
Yep, that's
So,
exactly right. That's well said.
and that's kind of where we're at when it comes to the way we deal with Earth.
It really is. We are past the point of band-aids. We are past the point of incremental changes.
Yeah.
um we are, I'm sure most of the people that view this show are in that new thought category, and man, if there's anything needed right now, it's new thinking about how we are being on this planet. It's why my organization is called the Rethink, right?
There
It's
you
like,
go.
let's rethink
Yeah.
our place on the in this earth and on this earth, and let's rethink our own understanding even of ourselves, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of it, is that when you said something to me before the show from A Course in Miracles that was so powerful, and something to the effect of, like, this is the temple of God. I don't have the right to destroy it. I can You say
Yeah.
it better than I did.
The Course in Miracles is definitely one of my main spiritual squeezes, and
Yeah,
it
I love it.
has totally transformed my life. It's very, very compatible with unity and all new thought in my
It is.
experience. And one of the many profound concepts and tools in there is when we are in limited thinking, when we are viewing ourselves in in a human only lens to ask, would you be believing that about the host to God? Because
Exactly.
that is what we are, right? Our highest selves are the
Yeah.
host to God. We are extensions of God. So how
Yes.
crazy for us to be believing this littleness about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tied to this from the course is this like, oh, turn yourself upside down
Yeah.
concept of, it isn't arrogant to believe that we are an extension of God. It isn't arrogant to believe that we are all that. It's
Yeah.
arrogant to believe that we're not,
That's
because
right.
that means we're actually believing that our little human understanding supersedes the divine. I mean, that's just really cool to play with, right?
I love
You're
that. I
being
love that.
arrogant when you're putting yourself down.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
And I really love that because I remember as a little kid being told, oh, you're being selfish, or, if you do something for yourself, like, oh, you're so self-centered, what a narcissist. But the truth is, when you care for you, you're caring for the divine,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I
You're,
mean,
you're doing
yeah.
what's right.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, when you look at our world and when you look at some of the mad leaders in our world right now, don't you
Some
think
doozies.
don't you think it would all be utterly different if they actually did care for and love themselves and feel that they were enough?
That's where, when I look at things like bullying and, whether it comes from CEOs or it comes from children, for me, the idea of anti-bullying is such a silly idea because it makes somebody wrong. And 9 times out of 10, the person who is inflicting pain is in so much pain. The only way they know to handle it is to project it. So I think that loving these beings back to wholeness is actually the step. And I wrote a children's book, which is yet to be published, that talks about being unique and special. And that we're all a little bit different and we're all exactly the same,
Yeah.
right? We're all an expression of God, period, end of story, full stop. And we show up with different colored skin and different hairstyles and, we speak different languages, we eat different food, and yay, that's what's fun, right? There's all this diversity in this individuality. And it's like, I get so excited that the book I wrote is all about a little child who makes a little mistake. Well, it doesn't make mistake, but by her mom's standard, she did. And how that is her unique nature. And when her friends were teasing her about it, she just owned it and went, I like it. I'm unique. I'm unique
Yeah.
and special, just like you, right? There's this whole story around being unique and special, which is what we all are.
Have you heard the parable of the cracked pot? You may have, and stop me if you have, but
Go ahead.
there's this pot, this earthen pot that every day, the boy who is the servant to the king, he collects this one of like those yolks and
Yeah.
puts a pot here and a pot there and goes down and collects water. Well, this one pot it's a crack pot. There's a crack in it, right? And so by the time the boy has scooped the water and gotten back up to the palace, about half of it has drained out of the crack pot and, makes extra trips and everything. And the little pot feels bad about itself. It feels bad
Yeah.
about its flaw and it doesn't know how to heal itself. And it's different. Well, it turns out one day the king comes out to just, kind of uncharacteristically and is perusing things. And all along this one side of the pathway back and forth to the creek is this beautiful line of wildflowers. And the king praises, oh, there you go. That's so good, Dea. The king praises the little boy with the cracked pot because it has produced all these flowers.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Watering the plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our flaws sometimes are our goal. Our quote flaws are, to your point, our goals.
It is our goal.
I'll share, not our goals, our gold. I'll share one other thing that your point resonated in me. So, the title of your show is Just One You. And as we were getting ready, you were saying it's about kind of talking about our personal stories, particularly of spiritual evolution, I started working with A Course in Miracles back to, I'm coming full spiral back to bullying.
Yeah.
When I was in the middle of an unbelievable public shaming.
Oh, yes.
That's
Do
in my
tell.
book. You can read about that, whatever. I was serving as First Lady of Oregon. My partner, the governor, was running for reelection. A reporter dug up some dirt from my past. I don't think it's all that dirty, actually, but used that to launch this whole campaign of allegations that the governor and I had misused our public positions for personal gain. And overnight, I became the most humiliated person in every circle that I ran in. I even made it into the British tabloids. I mean, Monica Lewinsky and I have spoken on the phone. It was unbelievable and almost impossible to describe. And I used to call it broke me, and then it broke me open. And I used to call it the big ordeal, and now I call it the big initiation. But early on, I was, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I was going through Eckhart Tolle and Pema Chödrön and all these, and the course kept coming up. And
Yeah.
I finally, maybe 6 months into all of this, I finally started working with it. And you get to the part about forgiveness, right? And the part where there is no bully and there is no sin. And I'm like, holla, come on now. I mean, that was like, wow, I don't know. And there's this awesome thing in there where you can't necessarily, it's called the being willing to forgive. And
Yeah.
I had to start with, I don't really think I am willing, but I do believe this feels terrible, and I'm willing to become willing. I had to really start there. But I have over the last many, many years, that was 2014, I think 2015 when I started working with the course. The course does teach that pretty much every behavior, every action is either an act of love or a call for
Or
love.
a call for love.
And I'm probably 80% there now when I'm dealing with, what feels like personal attack or what have you.
Yeah. Well, and I think your book, When Life Blows Up.
When Life Blows Up, A Guide to Peace, Power, and Reinvention. I always knew I would be an author, always. I never believed it would be about being massively publicly shamed, but it is what it is.
But it's amazing because that's the very thing. There's a question in the chat. Do you find that the experience was the catalyst for becoming who you are? Oh, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. And you say it broke you and then broke you open. It was a gift indeed, no matter how troubling or challenging, right? Yes, the willingness to be willing. That's the start.
Yeah, I would
That's funny.
absolutely say that now. I mean, I wouldn't wish a catastrophic, massive public shaming that went on for like 4 years on anybody, but I
No.
also would not wish that I would not be who and how I am as a result of that. And I'm pretty much really an open book. And I wrote about in the book, I talk about it in my TED Talk. I did not realize prior to all of that how under the influence of ego I was. And I don't mean ego in the sense of like arrogance or whatever, but I mean really, really, really being dictated by the little version of me and really needing outside validation to
Yeah.
feel worthy and enough. And I'd been successful most of my life in getting that outside validation. And
Right.
then all of a sudden overnight,
It's stripped
it
away.
was gone. And even things that I did legitimately do were being invalidated. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I no longer really need all that. So
Well,
yeah,
and that's what's really exciting. And in the course, I think it talks about too that what people think of you is none of your business.
that's somewhere, but that's certainly true. Yep.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we do sort of place all of our well-being in the hands of the world out there. And what a way to trip and fall flat on our faces when we do that.
Yeah.
Because someone is going to show us you ain't all that you think you are. I had a really shaming experience. Anyway, I laughed about it because it was just so in New Thought, we believe that, the thoughts that you think become manifest, right?
Yeah.
And so I was, I've been dealing with a weight issue and it's getting better. But anyway, I was quite a bit heavier a year ago. And I'm on my way home from something and it's really busy. And my husband phones me and says, stop at McDonald's, grab us some fast food because we don't have time for anything. And in my mind, I think McDonald's is the very last place on earth that I should be eating for my health, for everything. This is probably a year and a half ago, maybe two. So I pull into McDonald's, order the food for the two of us. I go to drive through, it's a double lane, and somebody kind of cuts me off. And then she looks at me. She gets out of her car and looks at me and, you're so fat. What are you
Oh my
doing eating
God.
here? This is the last place you should be. And I looked at her and I went, whoa, you're kind of evil. But when I drove out of McDonald's, I kept thinking, I wish I would have said to her, honey, keep coming here and you can have all this too.
I wish you had too.
I wish I had as well. But I immediately afterwards, I thought, oh my God, you thought it and it manifests.
You're a powerful manifester, miss. I mean, you are. I was hearing some of your gories. Yeah. You gotta wield that wand real carefully. That's hilarious. Oh.
I mean, be careful what you're thinking about because
Spirit has such a sense of humor for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I couldn't believe somebody would actually say something like that to a stranger. But at the same time, I had to laugh because it was an absolute mirror of my thought.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget how powerful our thinking is, how
Yeah.
powerful the words we speak are and how they impact people. And when we were talking about bullying, how do we find a way to love our way through the things that we're going through, to love ourselves? And that's where your quote from the course was so powerful, that this is God.
Yeah,
Right?
and this is not even the body. When the course is talking about you are host to God, it's not even talking about your body. Not that it's not important to take good care of these amazing suitcases that we are given, but the host to God is the truth of who we are, right?
The truth. Yeah.
For sure. Sort of back to the external validation. I gave a talk not too long ago. It's on my cylviahayes.com website, or on my YouTube channel, called Who's Your Gatekeeper? And I gave this at my local Unity Central Oregon. And it's one of the talks that I've probably received. Well, not probably, it's one of the talks I have received the most positive feedback. And it addresses the fact that we live in a culture that absolutely inundates us with messages of comparison and not enoughness and the need for certain sort of external validation, particularly in validation of our physical forms, our material things. And we make a lot of those things our gatekeeper. And we give away so much personal power when we do that. So I think that's maybe one of my superpowers in this lifetime is becoming more aware of, and hopefully helping others become more aware of, where our need for external validation is really sapping our own power and personal strength and the gifts we have to offer.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And the thing is, the people that are in front of us, of course, don't know us. I don't care if it's your parents or whoever.
Yep.
We don't know who we are half the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're finding our way. And I think when we look at the ways in which we can judge and criticize ourselves and others, I think there's really a disconnect there because we haven't realized we are the wave of the ocean, that this divine presence that is everything, everywhere, the plant life, the animal life, hell, the chair I'm sitting in, It's all part of this one energy. And as we come to really accept our integration of it, our willingness to be with it in a way that's positive, I think we begin to change everything for the better. And good can be realized when we start to see that oneness, that, the person in front of me who's shaming and humiliating me is me.
Yeah, I believe, I don't know quite how to do it. I'm not claiming to be a guru of it, but I do believe that one of the primary purposes of this human part of our journey is to come back to a recognition
Yeah.
of who and what we actually are.
Yes.
Like who and what we actually are. I'm not just this body. I'm not just this personality that I've crafted.
Yeah.
We're way more, right?
Way more than that. And on that note, we're going to take a little commercial break. You're watching The Joy Show with my wonderful guest, Cylvia Hayes, and we're going to be back in just a moment, so don't go away.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
And we're back. You're watching The Joy Show, and my guest Cylvia Hayes is sharing her divine wisdom, and we're having some good fun here this day, this week. And hey, we'll be back next week doing it again with somebody new. Somebody new. My eldest daughter, is celebrating her 50th birthday today.
Happy birthday and congrats to both of you.
Yeah, I created a little video message for her this morning and sent it to her, and then she texts me and goes, "Made me cry on my birthday." So we had a lovely phone conversation. But
Nice.
yeah, it's fun. You talked about being on your own at 16, and I had a baby at 16 and left home and got married and got divorced and did all kinds of stuff. But I'll tell you, there's not a moment that I would change the life I've lived.
Mhm.
As painful as it was often.
Yeah.
I didn't have a big public shaming like you got. That's next level. Oh my gosh, girl. You said something in Spirit Cafe when you were on, and you were talking about how you managed fear
Yeah.
when you were in the midst of that. Could you share that with us? Because it's so powerful. It's such
Yeah.
an important message.
Yeah, it was, I think, one of the biggest, I call these all gifts wrapped in barbed wire. It was one of the gifts wrapped in barbed wire that came from that event, because it was so terrifying, and I do share with folks, back to the bullying thing again. I now understand why young people, especially when they go through this bullying thing that is so alive in our culture right now, why it can actually be deadly. because we are not genetically wired to be exiled. We are a tribal species. And this thing was so terrifying. I mean, we were under investigation by the FBI, the IRS. My attorney was freaked out. I'd never had an attorney before. I'd been through 2 divorces and had never had an attorney before. It was just, and this whole state of Oregon was in upheaval because, government was in upheaval. It was so much bigger than I was. And, I live in a little 960 square foot house. I drove a Prius at the time, I've never chased after a lot of money. I've been an activist and an environmentalist, and I was so beyond what felt like my means.
Yeah.
And I could not see where it was going. And I was as close to panic attack as I've ever experienced. And the fear was so intense that it was just like a live beast chewing at my mind. And the huge tool, the gift that came through, and it is the power of really coming into the present moment and asking, right now in this moment, am I safe?
Yeah.
Because I was all the way throughout. I might have reporters circling the front of my house in my little tiny sleepy cul-de-sac, but were they coming in the front door? No. Right now in this moment, I'm safe. And pretty much anybody listening to a show like this can say that, because we're not running from a gun-toting mad person. We're not jumping out of the way of a rattlesnake. So that I have found that to be unbelievably useful when I'm fearful about a loved one, when I'm fearful about a financial situation. I've got this thing due in a week that I don't know how right now, this moment, I don't know how I'm going to pay it. But right now in this moment, I know that I'm safe. And that I have a whole chapter in my book on that, because I think that it is, fear is such a disempowering habit. It's a habit that we get into. And it's important. I'm an environmentalist, and we developed fear for a useful purpose. You need that fear when you hear that rattlesnake, right?
Yeah.
But we're now in a culture where our fear is generally based on something that's not happening right now. It's chronic fear based on what fear of the future, financial fear, all the craziness of this kind of disconnected society that we live in. So I'll put a period.
Yeah. Fear of the illusion, right?
Yeah.
It's a fabrication of our imagination.
Yeah.
And media today is really perpetuating that. When we watch the news and they go, what if doesn't count? It's who, what, where, when, why.
For sure.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
That to me has got me off the news wagon. Like, I'm not interested. I don't watch the news. I don't pay attention to the news. It always finds its way to me if it's something that I need to know. But the truth is, I don't spend my time there because it's not news anymore. When I studied journalism years ago, it was who, what, where, when, why. And if you editorialized, if you put in an opinion of your own, you got a giant X on that paper and it was turfed back to you.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. I still am a quote news junkie. I will say that going through what I went through, it was disillusioning in many ways, and that is not that I no longer view that as a negative term, but it was disillusioning about our political system because both parties got engaged and taken us down. I mean, it was also disillusioning around media because I could not believe that media could be that blatantly and intentionally, it was later proven, intentionally dishonest.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it. So when I hear either MSNBC or Fox talking about someone on quote the other side, I just take a step back and say, I'm just going to wait and see as facts come up, because
Yeah.
If you're a public figure, which is really loosely defined, you
Yeah.
have no recourse. You don't.
And people don't remember the story that came out later that says, no, it wasn't true.
Yeah, we were never even charged after 2.5 years of investigations. All the feds came back and said, there's nothing here to charge them with, which I knew was going to be the outcome.
Yeah.
But the damage, by that time, the damage was done by that time.
It's interesting how, even in our little day-to-day world where we will think things about people and we will give voice to that, we'll gossip or whatever. And that's really the same type of energy, right? Like it's that
Yes.
gossip, it's telling
Yes.
stories that we make up in our mind. We go, oh, I think you're this. And then we blow it up. And the harm that does
Yes,
is
definitely.
immense.
One of the things I realized about myself as I went through the process of healing, this process of realizing there was a lot of me in the people who had done these things toward me, because I myself, in my own insecurity, I want to have a big life. I want my life to have a big impact. I want to change the entire freaking global capitalistic economic system. I want to have a big life. And I became aware going through this of, I would have that little feeling of glee when some person who was having a bigger life than me got taken off their pedestal, right? I started to notice, I've never really been a gossiper, but inwardly I've been competitive, and I have been, bring them down a peg or two. I was unaware of it, but it was a habit. And so, and one of the great prosperity transformations that I have been in the midst of the last several years is really celebrating other people's successes and celebrating people being recognized for doing good stuff for goodness sakes, right?
Yeah.
But we live in a culture where you have to be most of us have to be intentional to unlearn the littleness and step into, I'm going to celebrate everybody because we're all one. This is great.
Yeah, it's it's so important to do that. One of the things that's been kind of my mandate is collaboration, cooperation, community, and connection. Like creating that as sort of a foundational thing for me, that when I start thinking thoughts of, oh, well, don't you think you're something? I immediately want to interrupt that. I have an intention of connection, an intention of collaboration. And even within CSL and Unity and UFBL and, any of the New Thought organizations in the world, it's like, I want to see us do this. I want to bridge those differences because there aren't any actually there. And all of the illusions that we've created of separation don't serve our world order at the moment. Coming together will serve.
For sure. I'm actually I wanted to let your folks know I would love people to subscribe to my publication Transcend. It's on Substack. If you Google Cylvia Hayes Transcend or Substack, it will come up. It's the first it was one of the kind of evolutions into my becoming. I'll be an ordained minister in the end of May after ish years of formal study. So I'm kind of in this process of fully stepping into that identity. And Transcend, and I'm a writer, and Transcend is a place where I don't separate out like my environment, economic system change audience from my spiritual and personal empowerment audience. This is where I kind of put my whole self out there.
Good.
And oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. We were
talking about Transcend. We were talking about, everybody coming together with cooperation, collaboration.
Yes. So thank you. So I just started this morning writing a piece. I'm going to do a piece on Transcend about how we're hearing right now about how even before the Russian invasion, the population of Ukraine was falling off, and that's going to be a problem for them. And then we were hearing about, the Chinese population is now not growing as fast as it was, and that could be a problem for them going forward. And I have to take a step back and go, my God, people, we're, being competitive with another nation on an overpopulated planet where we are over consuming Earth's resources is like being in a raft going over Niagara Falls, and you feel a little bit better that the other people in the front are going over first. I mean, it's like we have got to evolve past
Yes.
nationalism to global citizenship at this point. It's critical.
It is
So, and that's part of the divide. That's part of what got me sparked on this, Barbara. Thank you. Was all of these layers of separation and othering that we as a species have embedded in our cultural way of being.
I love that. Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Niagara Falls is in my backyard.
I'm so glad I'm going over 0.25 seconds after you are. Yeah.
It's funny because I live in Canada and I live very close to Niagara Falls. It's an hour and a half drive away. I go there often. And so that visual was very clear. And I think, one of the things I'm noticing within our organizations, because Unity is a worldwide ministry, so to speak. It's actually a US centric.
Yeah, so far. We've
got and same thing with CSL, as a Canadian trying to navigate being part of that organization, the challenges we face in going, no, our law doesn't allow us to do that, or, these things and just sort of a disconnect. I remember being in New York at a convention, a Louise Hay convention, and I'm standing in a Starbucks lineup with, a bunch of other attendees. And I'm talking to this woman in front of me and she goes, "Oh, you're from Canada. Now that's a province of England, right?"
Oh, well.
And I said, "No, we're a country. Completely independent.
A large country." Oh, wow.
And she felt bad. And I said, don't feel bad. We study US history, but you don't necessarily study Canadian history. So, there's going to be a difference there. So we work to educate, but, it's the ways in which we find my way is the best way. And I think that's one of the things that I've been trying to shift and change for myself in my businesses, is that what I don't understand, and there's a lot I don't understand because I'm a white woman. I was raised in a white city, in a white family, I was in Alberta, which is just north of Montana, sort of that same cowboy energy. And being raised in that, and then coming to Toronto, which is very, very diverse, and finding that the work that I do, a lot of the work I do, is around anti-Indigenous, anti-Black racism, and beginning to change the model of colonialism, and coming to a place of really learning about different cultures and different ways of being. And I have it in my mind what it should look like, but I get disproved constantly because I don't know what I don't know. But I love the curiosity.
Yeah, this is certainly the topic of a whole other series of shows, is it's an awkward time to be white. And that's a good thing. I feel crazy saying that sometimes, but it really can be. Like, even in my own movement, environmental movement, economic system change movement, there's such an emphasis now on people of color and diversity. And I have actually been excluded from some things that I was a shoo-in qualifications wise. And that's awkward, and that's okay, because for whatever reason, I've come into this existence as a relatively pretty white person, which in and of itself is a privilege. So, I put this out there. I believe we are in apocalyptic times. And I don't say that in a frightening way. The actual meaning of apocalypse is the unveiling of what was hidden. It's an uncovering. And in the US especially, and I have to say, I loved your land acknowledgement on the beginning. I loved that you brought Africans into that, folks who, because the United States was built on black bodies and then black gold when we discovered oil. And now we've had this, we've put forward this US myth of everybody can make it and the great melt. It's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
It really is. And we've been able to kind of sweep that under the rug for millennia, and you can't anymore. We can't.
And you can't do it anymore.
And that's painful, but it's powerful. It needs to happen. The same thing is happening, honestly, in Canada with your Indigenous people, and that history, that's not going to be covered up anymore.
It can't be. And the thing is, it's true of the US as well. You may not have unearthed the bodies yet, but believe me, they're there.
Exactly right.
We stole this land. I said to somebody the other day, if somebody came into your house and kicked your ass out and said, it's now mine, how would you deal with that? And then you got pushed into another neighborhood in another place and got told that's where you have to stay. Oh, and by the way, we're going to take your children away because we don't like the way you're raising them. So we're going to do it different.
Yeah, I actually should have said America was based on genocide and land theft, then black bodies, and then black gold. And then black gold, oil, and all of those things now, all of those things are like, these have created lasting damage and chaos. And you're going to have to address it because you're not going to be able to just keep going on like it never happened.
And the thing is, we address it by acknowledging that it's there and being willing to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And accept. Like, I ministered in a black church for 11 years, and there was a couple of times from the pulpit that I said something inappropriate. And the one time it was immediately, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, I don't think I should have said that here. And somebody came up to me afterwards and said, Reverend, do you really think that was an appropriate thing to say in this group? And I said, absolutely not.
I made a mistake and I'm learning.
Yeah. Right. And she just stopped right there because I didn't defend it. I didn't, I didn't go, oh, well, I didn't mean none of that. I just said, you're right. It was inappropriate. And she just immediately relaxed in that moment. And, and then somebody phoned me once and said, you said this, does it mean that? And I went, thank you. Thank you for telling me, because I don't know what I don't know. But I do know that I love you.
I really, really respect that. And kudos to your courage, because I think if we also just constantly temper and check and pre-check everything we're saying, we don't get the chance to learn. We don't, our blind spots. We all have blind spots,
Of course we will. We have to. Yeah. If you're born in the Caribbean, you have a different story than somebody who's born in Africa. And if you're born in, Midwest US or Alberta, I was born in Alberta, it's like you have a different understanding of the world and life because you were raised different, you were taught different. And so it's like, can we come to a place of going, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, that's ideal.
To be curious.
That's ideal. Coming back to Course in Miracles, one of my favorite, I'm going to paraphrase it terribly, I'm afraid, but there's a wonderful passage, I think it's lesson 189, that says, it talks about the power of forgetting everything you think you know, everything you've learned in your past, everything even that this course is saying, and come with wholly empty hands unto God.
Oh, I love
whatever
that.
You view God as, let it all go. In my experience, when I'm able to do that, that's when I'm more able to open up to the moreness, right? The moreness. It's like I can pick all that crap up again if I want. It's still, but if I can set it aside for a minute and open up to the possibility that I don't know, or that I maybe even know erroneously, What
Yeah.
does that open up?
Well, it's interesting because here in Canada, of course, the issues with the Indigenous people is huge, with us unearthing these babies' bodies,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds, and there's probably thousands and thousands as we continue to excavate, and it wrenches my heart in ways that I can hardly describe. But I remember being raised in Calgary, a very white city at the time, very white community. There was nobody that wasn't white except the corner store was owned by a Chinese couple. And so all I knew was whiteness. And I remember with my dad, and so I never really learned prejudice, I thought. I
Right.
thought. And then a number of years ago, probably about 8 or 10 years ago, I'm driving through Northern Ontario and I'm going through a reservation and I stop at a gas station and go in, and there's of course an Indigenous man behind the counter, and the thought in my mind is he's probably drunk and the place is likely filthy. And I almost burst into tears in that moment that I could have such a racist thought in my head. And I went into the washroom and the place was clean and beautiful and wonderful, and I'm sitting there processing this hate that had bubbled up inside of me. And I thought, "Oh my god, this is my dad. This is my
Yeah.
dad when I was a little girl, and we would drive through the east part of Calgary, and we'd go past the National Hotel, and he'd go, 'Oh, look at the drunk Indians.'" And that hatred
Sure.
was just deep down inside and didn't come up because I didn't have an interaction.
It was your
And so
program.
as
It was programming.
it was programming. And so as I calmed myself and then went out and went to the front counter and had a conversation with the gentleman who was very sweet and lovely, and I thought, this is a healing moment. This is a
Yeah.
moment for me to let go of the conditioning, to release the pattern, and to not hate myself for something that was gifted to me unbeknownst to me because I was a little kid and couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And but I can release it now. And so there was a huge healing that happened as a result of that. But it was such, for all the work that I do with all the people that I work with, it was, for me, it was so horrible to think that idea could actually enter my thinking process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but
I
we
get it.
heal as
You
we heal.
you have such passion around colonization and decolonization when it comes to what's happening, with these lands and these places we have, which I appreciate and resonate with. And I really love how you language some of that. I also am passionate about decolonizing our minds,
Yes.
decolonizing our programming, right? Because I was raised with racist parents too,
Yeah.
and it's very, very, very rewarding and cool to not have the kind of knee-jerk inner opinion that I used to, right? Until I actually got to know some people of color, right?
Exactly.
So there's a whole lot of decolonization that needs to go on, decolonization of our thinking. And that really is the bulk of my work. Like this work that I do on challenging the limitless growth capitalist economy. And by the way, I'm not socialist. I'm not necessarily anti-capitalist. I don't think we've developed an economic system suited for the time. I think I'm into like a restoration economy, which doesn't exist and is probably neither one of those two things that always gets put a label on. But and I realize that no one of us can make a massive influence there.
No.
But I do believe the more of us, and this is the bulk of my work in that area, the more that we are able to challenge the assumptions that we are handed by the system that we're in, the better able we will be to crack that system open and be like daisies growing through the asphalt to create something better. Challenging the assumptions, questioning the program that we're given.
Yeah, we've bought into a system because it was given to us. It's what we've lived in. It's
Yeah,
been kind of the reality of the world at the moment, and it is one that cannot sustain itself.
that's exactly right. And it did some great things. I mean,
It did.
we all have a standard of living that's just like, wow. But now
Yeah,
we've reached that point of diminishing return,
yeah.
right? This old curve is not working anymore. And as they would do is in business reinvention, this is called the area of paradox. The
Yeah.
new curve, it's not yet really established. We can't quite see what the new curve is going to be. And we're in that area right in between the two.
And it's such a powerful place to be because we can reimagine
Yes.
life. And
Yeah.
if we listen to that internal voice, I think we get direction that is so valuable
Yeah.
that we wouldn't even have thought of. My husband is a comedic actor, and he'll say every now and again he gets a gift from the comedy gods. He'll be
Yeah.
doing a show or something, and all of a sudden something lands, and it's like this huge moment where people just erupt because it's perfect. And I think that's what we're seeking right now, is that gift from the comedy gods, that new way of thinking and being and allowing, that allows us to really come alive and create a sustainable universe, a
Maybe
sustainable
maybe it's
world.
maybe it's the gift from the sanity gods.
Sanity gods.
Right? It's like the gift from the sanity gods because we got an insane thing going on right here, right now. Yeah.
We do. We do. Well, we're coming up to the end of our show. And so, what I'd like to ask you right now, Cylvia, is what idea would you like to leave our audience with today? What one thing do you really want them to get?
Ooh, you didn't prepare me for such a great question. Um, I really think that I would like to leave everyone with what I shared there a moment ago, which is just really, I'm sure most of you in an audience like this already are, but really questioning the assumptions and the norms, questioning the norms
Yes.
of the system that we are in. It may be because it's normal doesn't necessarily mean it's optimal. So just questioning the norms, and doing everything in every moment that we each can to remember who and what we truly are.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really grateful. This has
Thanks for
been a
having me.
super conversation, and I admire the work you're doing. I look forward to seeing you at the Unity Convention.
You too.
That will be wonderful. We can grab a lunch, and just continue doing what you're doing, because you really are a gift as we reimagine our economic structure, our world order, as we begin to see the possibility of something more collaborative, cooperative, and connected. So thank
Thank
you.
you, Barbara. I appreciate it. I do. Thanks to everyone for listening.
Awesome. Well, as we close today, the idea that I want to leave you with was a funny thing that happened to me in a hotel during COVID. And I went there for a silent retreat, 24 hours of reprieve. And when, I signed the paper, I had taken the pen out of the container. They had clean pens and dirty pens during COVID. And so I took the clean pen out and I signed the paper and then dropped it into the container for the dirty pen. And what I realized was they had a white container for clean and a black container for the dirty pens. And I thought, therein is the subtlety of the messages of separation that we deal with ongoing. So as we observe some of these things that are not in the highest and best good for all life everywhere, what we can do is begin to change it by noticing it, and also by discussing it maybe with the people who have set up the system. It's time for creative change. And I know that as we connect from that divine intelligence within us, we actually create a world that is truly, truly beautiful and remarkable. Thank you for being here. I love you. This is The Joy Show, and we'll be back next week.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org. newthoughtmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.